But you know something? The kid shouldn't be wasting his time with a stick anyway. If he's 4 years old, he should be home studying for his kindergarten entrance exams. Do you know about that shit? Oh, they have them now. Yeah. There are places that have kindergarten entrance exams. The poor little fuck. The poor little fuck, he can barely locate his dick.
Now this is a slow cooker. Takes a lot of patience here. The first ingredient is a newborn child. You must start fresh. So pluck at the tender, since then is when they are full of potential. The earlier you start, the more tender the results. Make sure that the child has not been spoiled yet and is full of possibilities and individuality. This raw potential needs to be refined, shaped, and molded into something more palatable. 1 piling scoop of unresolved parental traumas. Next, we add a generous scoop of unresolved traumas of the parents. Be aware, since these are often disguised as love, but they're more about the dreams that were never fulfilled and insecurities that the parents have because of the dysfunctional life they have experienced themselves, which are now ready to project onto this new child they have ready to cook. It begins to cook them from the inside out. Yum! A generous amount of societal expectations. Now, we throw in a generous amount of societal expectations. These are the unwritten rules and norms that dictate what a successful child should look like, be it academic achievements, extracurricular involvements, or social status. This ingredient creates a thick layer of pressure, ensuring that the child feels the weight of the world on their shoulders from an early age. 1 schooling system, preferably standardized. Now, this ingredient is what helps the previous ingredient open up its flavors. A standardized, uniform school system. This is where the real cooking begins. Picture classrooms full of children, all being marinated in facts, rules, morality, law, and rigid expectations. Schools often mold children into identical products, stripping away individuality in favor of conformity. What's meant to be a nurturing environment becomes a factory, and every child a component in the machine. Remember, we want them tenderized and submissive. 1 tablespoon of fear, add more if needed. Now, we sprinkle in 1 tablespoon of fear, just a hint, enough to keep the child in check, reminding them of the consequences of failure or the perils of stepping out of line. This isn't a heavy-handed approach, rather it's the subtle introduction of anxiety that weaves itself into their psyche, so that the child gets marinated with terror till it is cooked, and is filled with compliance when it is ready to serve. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of being different, it all adds a distinct flavor. And if you want to intensify it, feel free to add those optional extra sprinkles during stressful moments like exams or peer pressure. Keep pressuring them. A nice pinch of creative suppression. Next, we add a pinch of creative suppression. This is when society begins to smother the child's natural curiosity and creativity, often labeling imaginative ideas as impractical or unrealistic. By discouraging creative thought, we ensure that the child fits neatly into the confines of societal norms, producing a dish that the society shall accept. A cup of political ideology. Let's not forget a cup of political ideology. Your child must follow what you have followed, right? This ingredient slowly seeps into the child's consciousness, shaping their beliefs about authority, governance, and morality. It's a powerful seasoning, ensuring the child learns what is acceptable and what is not, often leading to blind allegiance to political systems, no matter how corrupt they are. A handful of cultural norms. Next, we toss in a handful of cultural norms. These are the traditions and values that further bind the child to a specific identity, often limiting their worldview. By teaching them to adhere to these norms, we effectively season the dish, creating a flavor that is identifiable. Dash of shame and guilt. Now, let's add a dash of shame and guilt. This ingredient teaches children that their worth is conditional, leading to a lifelong struggle with self-acceptance. This is an important touch that keeps the dish from being too bland, ensuring the child feels they must earn love and approval. Social media and pop culture. This is for garnish. And of course, we can't forget a dash of social media and pop culture for garnish. This ingredient serves to further manipulate children's perceptions of themselves and the world. As they scroll through their feeds, they observe superficial ideals, turning their self-worth into likes and follows. The result is a beautifully garnished dish that looks good on the outside but lacks substance on the inside. Let them shake their butts for the society. Now let's start cooking. The first step is prepping the ingredients. Start them young. The preparation time is birth to age 5. Let's begin with the instructions. So you first begin with a fresh, unspoiled child. At this stage, they are pure potential, bursting with curiosity and individuality. Gently but firmly begin to knead societal expectations into them. Introduce them to the idea that they must live up to something, the hopes, dreams, and failures of those who came before them, especially their parents. Add a generous helping of your own unresolved ambitions. This is crucial for flavor. What you could not achieve, make sure the child feels responsible for achieving. Put an inch of comparison. Constantly remind the child how others are doing better in life, setting a benchmark for success that will always feel just out of reach. Make sure to sprinkle this in conversations about school, play, and even hobbies. Now you season with guilt and obligation. From a young age, instill the notion that their happiness and freedom come at the expense of others. Make sure they know that every decision they make has the power to disappoint or hurt those who care for them. Ensure that any deviation from societal norms is met with concern or disapproval. Comments like, "Why can't you be more like this or that?" should be delivered with a loving tone, but must sting just enough to make them rethink any attempt at originality. Dress them up in cultural and social norms, ensuring that their external appearance mirrors what is deemed acceptable. Any signs of nonconformity should be smoothed out as early as possible, otherwise they grow wild. Be careful not to let the child stray too far from the mold. Start shaping their future with guidance that subtly crushes their unique spirit, but make sure it's presented as love. At this stage, be mindful of allowing too much freedom. While some creativity is tempting, too much will spoil the dish. Keep them compliant by introducing the early concepts of shame, guilt, and fear of failure. Just a dash though, enough to ensure they begin seeking validation from you. Now, when you're done with these instructions, the second step is to tenderize the children with education, the schooling marinade. The preparation time is ages 5 to 18. Now that your child is ready, immerse them in the schooling system. The goal here is to tenderize their thinking, so be sure to choose a standardized uniform and curriculum. Marinate their minds in conformity. Make sure they spend hours memorizing facts rather than developing critical thinking skills. This way, from a young age, they learn what's expected of them, adjusting their natural instincts to align with societal pressures. No rough edges, no inconvenient questions, just smooth, easy to digest compliance. Drizzle in the notion of success based on external metrics. Grades, rankings, and awards are perfect tools to measure how well they are conforming. Be sure to emphasize that their worth is defined by these numbers, reinforcing the idea that self-worth comes from external validation, not inner fulfillment. Encourage them to find their place in the pecking order early on, whether it's through popularity, academic success, or athletic performance. Make sure they understand that their position in society is fixed and that climbing out of their assigned box is undesirable, if not impossible. Teach them to view rules not as guidelines for fairness but as absolute truths. The key is making sure they believe there is no alternative path, that questioning the system will only lead to hardship. During this phase, add a pinch of creative suppression. While it's tempting to let them explore the arts or philosophy, too much free thought can ruin the texture of the final product. So just stick to the basics: compliance, repetition, and obedience. If they show signs of questioning authority, quickly sprinkle in a bit of fear. Remind them of the dangers of standing out, whether it's social ostracization or future failure. This helps to keep them tender and zesty. Standardized tests are your best tool here. They ensure that each child, no matter how unique, ends up tasting roughly the same by the end of the process. Make sure the tests only reward rote learning or memorization and penalizes creativity. The more uniform the output, the better the system is working. Also, don't forget to occasionally sprinkle them with praise for following instructions. Positive reinforcement is a key ingredient for keeping them on track. But be careful. Don't overdo it. Too much praise might make them think they're special, and you don't want that. Just enough to keep them craving external validation. Now you cover with a layer of superficial individual freedom. Let them express themselves with small, harmless deviations, like choosing what color notebook to use or whether to wear a peculiar dress or accessory. These small allowances will trick them into feeling they have agency while keeping their fundamental thinking in line with the broader mold. Finally, you apply peer pressure as a secret ingredient. Peers are fantastic at reinforcing conformity. When your child starts to doubt the process, let their friends who are equally marinated remind them of the right path. Nothing keeps them tender like the fear of standing out. The third step, political stew. Simmer them in ideology. The preparation time, lifelong. Now that the child has been softened through schooling, it's time to immerse them in political and social ideologies. Place them in a deep pot of societal stew. filled with various belief systems, each promising the illusion of choice but ultimately leading to the same end: control. Simmer them gently in the boiling waters of division and conflict. Encourage them to adopt whatever dominant political flavor is trending in their social group, be it left, right, or center. The trick is to ensure they remain divided from those with different views, keeping them distracted from any systemic issues. Add 3 cups of fear, stirring constantly: fear of the other, fear of losing identity, fear of failure. It doesn't really matter as long as it keeps them compliant. You keep on adding them. Stir in some nationalism, tribalism, or ideological passion. This will mask any remaining individual thought and ensure they align with the broader goals of society. Keep stirring, as over time this will mix well into the brain and will taste better for the society. Throughout the process, maintain a low boil. You don't want them to develop too much independent thought, but you also don't want them to rebel. The key is to keep them simmering in just enough tension to remain on edge, but never fully aware of why. Keep them slightly uncomfortable, so they constantly seek solutions from the very system that keeps them in the stew. You keep them busy with the latest political scandals, celebrity gossip, and divisive issues. Blend in misinformation. Make sure they're fed a steady diet of half-truths and sensationalized news. This will keep them emotionally invested but intellectually disengaged, ensuring they don't dig too deep or ask the wrong questions. Then you toss in a few ideological figureheads. Leaders or influencers who seem to represent their ideals will help keep the stew flavorful. These figures should appear to offer change, but in reality, just reinforce the status quo. For extra richness, add freedom of choice. Allow them to choose between multiple political flavors, but ensure that all options are derived from the same base ingredients. This will create the illusion of variety while keeping the core recipe intact. They'll feel empowered, not realizing they're consuming the same stew regardless of the choices they make. You also adjust the heat as needed. When they show signs of independent thought, briefly raise the temperature through crisis, wars, or economic downturns. This will encourage them to cling even tighter to familiar ideologies. After the danger passes, lower the heat again, returning to a simmering status quo. Be cautious not to overcook. A person who boils too long in political ideology can sometimes harden, becoming radicalized. You want them soft and easily swayed, not rigid in their beliefs. The perfect balance is a citizen who believes they are free, while never questioning who controls the stove. Now the next step, you garnish with media influence. This is optional but highly recommended. For added flavor, garnish your child with a steady diet of media influence. This includes social media, television, and news cycles designed to keep them distracted and docile. Be careful not to overwhelm the dish. A well-garnished child will consume media without critical thought, but too much exposure could lead to unhealthy skepticism. The perfect balance is a media diet that keeps them engaged in trivialities and away from deeper, independent reflection. Keep in mind, trends change quickly, so adjust the media garnish according to the cultural moment. Whether it's influencers, reality TV, or the latest viral challenge, the goal is to keep their attention focused outward, away from introspection. Now the final step, serve to society, the final dish. The serving time is adulthood. For a more complex flavor profile, allow moments of dissatisfaction or existential crisis. But ensure these are fleeting. Let them experience the occasional pang of doubt only to soothe it with distractions like new consumer products, vacations, or self help mantras that promise fulfillment but never quite deliver. Garnish with the illusion of happiness. Let them believe they made it, whether through a secure job, a house, or material wealth. This layer of contentment serves as the perfect topping, masking any residual bitterness from a life shaped by external forces rather than inner purpose. You encourage them to indulge in harmless acts of creativity or leisure, like weekend hobbies or personal development courses. These moments will give them the illusion of reclaiming their individuality while ensuring they never stray too far from their pre-cooked role in society. By this point, your child should be well prepared. Their mind has been tenderized, their individuality suppressed, and they are ready to serve. Place them in the grand banquet of society. Watch as they fulfill their role: obedient worker, compliant citizen, and consumer. They've been seasoned just enough to believe they're making their own choices, but their flavors have been carefully curated by years of societal conditioning. Now, for the final touch, sprinkle a bit of freedom on top to make the dish more palatable. A light dusting of superficial choices, such as career paths, consumer goods, or political affiliations. This will keep them content. This delicate garnish of choice and opportunity will ensure they remain unaware of how tightly their flavors have been controlled throughout their life. Then you serve with a side of societal validation. Let them celebrate in the praise of peers and societal benchmarks of success, awards, promotions, and achievements that reinforce the idea that they are thriving, even when the reality is they've merely adapted to the system. We followed this recipe for generations without question, but sometimes to do the trick, you can just abandon them.